it just continued to allow the community to understand that this is not only a family event, but it's a safe family event, that we take safety very seriously. So I think it was well received. We didn't have any issues.
And they actually used the same sidewalk last year that you're asking for closure
Yes,
this
same
year.
space.
And it wasn't any kind of problems with with pedestrians or anything like that?
No, so we really try to space out the vendors that are utilizing the sidewalk space,
Okay.
and especially even in the road. So there's free space to move around, and didn't notice
Okay.
any issues.
So it's not 100% closure, they have room to walk around it,
Yes,
okay.
yeah, it's just the closure to make sure that our vendors can be up there and that they're not in violation of anything.
Yeah, and I would just ask you to make sure we maintain, accessibility to the
Absolutely. Yeah,
sidewalk.
they're spaced out pretty well, so we have usually one vendor that's just to the side of that driveway at the Fountain House, and then one to the side of the stairs at Trinity Church, and one on the other side, so there's quite a bit of space for movement.
Okay.
No, it's not on. Thanks, Sam. And the other thing that is not indicated in the closure is that we do have 2 identified days where we will not hold the market, and that's for holidays. So December 24th and December 31st, the market would be closed on those 2 days, but we have no other planned closures.
Okay, fantastic. We sort of experimented with it this past winter, and I think it worked fine. And Board, do you have any other questions for Gina on the matter?
I'll make a motion, we approve resolution 43B-2022.
Okay, I'll second the resolution. And are there any comments or questions from anyone in the audience? Any additional discussion? Any comments or questions on the event plan? Thank you for going through that too, by the way.
No
Good job
problem.
on the event plan.
Thank you.
We're getting a lot more information than we ever did before, but it's very detailed
Yeah.
and informative.
I think the plan's great. It took me quite a while, but my hope is next year will be a little bit easier.
It will
'cause
be.
I copy and pasted everything. But in talking with Hannah, I just explained, we kind of had all that information, and it's helpful for us to have it in writing and down on paper. So we were happy to do it.
Great.
Good.
Any additional discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Janet, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very much. Moving on. Next up, clerk, what's this resolution number?
44B,
44B.
2022. It's a resolution of the Board of Public Works and Safety of the City of Madison, Indiana regarding closing a portion of Broadway Street for a Broadway School Reunion Street Dance. Whereas there has been a request filed by School Libraries for a street closing in conjunction with the Broadway School Reunion Street Dance to be held on Saturday, September 17, 2022. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Public Works and Safety of the City of Madison, Indiana, that Broadway Street from the alley north of Presbyterian Avenue to Fifth Street shall be closed on Saturday, September 17, 2022, from 3 p.m. until midnight. Be it further resolved by the Board of Public Works and Safety of the City of Madison, Indiana, that said street as closed shall be under the supervision and control of Sue Livers at the time noted above for the year 2022.
Welcome, Sue. How are you?
Great, thank you. Thank
Now,
you for
what?
your patience.
Oh, you're welcome. What year will this reunion represent? A number of you all having the reunion at Broadway Street.
Now that I don't know.
Okay. I know it's been a long.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how many years it's been.
Okay. Are there any comments you'd like to make, Sue, with regards to the request for the street closure? We also have your event plan, which I believe you worked on with Hannah
Yes.
and the attendance. What level of attendance do you generally expect?
75 to 100.
Okay.
First of all, I'd like to thank Hannah Fagan and Matt Willard and Kim, Tammy Acosta, and you. I have not been chairman before. I haven't a clue of what all this involved. I've been on committees before and served as chairman of the committee for this, but was never in charge of it. So I certainly appreciate the agenda that was given to me and the sample used by the Chautauqua Committee. But I especially am grateful to Hannah and Matt and Kim and Tammy for walking me through the whole thing.
It can appear a little intimidating if you look at it that way, and what we're trying to do is gather information so that it can be the safest and funnest event possible. So we appreciate you working through it, and for our staff,
The
you're working
outline
with it too.
was great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a roadmap to what needs to be done.
Sure.
We're still waiting for our certificate of liability, and that is forthcoming, has been applied for.
Okay, good deal. It's a fun event. I encourage everybody in the community to come to it. It's a great event.
Everyone is welcome.
You'll have several bands performing down there. It's just a great street party. Board, are there any questions for Sue on this?
Looks like a nice event.
I hope so.
I'll move that we
So
approve.
granted, it is
Yep,
raining.
I know it's an outdoor event. We approve Resolution 44B 2022.
I'll second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Comments or questions? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Sue, thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Again, I
Keep us
cannot
posted if we can help in any way.
I cannot express how grateful that my committee is for all of the help and the support in pulling this together in the last 2 weeks.
Well, and you too, because you jumped in head first on this.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sue. All right, we have another resolution for a block party on Mill Street.
Resolution 45B-2022, a resolution of the Board of Public Works and Safety of the City of Madison, Indiana regarding closing a certain portion of Mill Street for an annual block party. Whereas there has been a request filed by Rusty Blight for a street closing in conjunction with an annual block party for the neighbors living on or around Mill Street and Second Street to be held on Sunday, October 2nd, 2022. Now therefore be resolved by the Board of Public Works and Safety of the City of Madison, Indiana, that Mill Street between First Street and Second Street shall be closed on Sunday, October 2nd, 2022, from 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. Be it further resolved by the Board of Public Works and Safety of the City of Madison, Indiana, that said street as closed shall be under the supervision and control of Rusty Bladen at the time noted above for the year 2022.
Unfortunately, Rusty couldn't be here today. Or is there another representative for the Mill Street Block Party? I know that he couldn't be here, and this is a recurring annual event. Our staff did review the event plan that he had completed. Hannah had worked on that. I would like to make a motion. We go ahead and approve the street closing for Mill Street on Resolution 45B-2022.
I'll second the mayor's motion.
Any additional discussion? Comments or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Thank you. Okay, we'll bring up Nicole, who is going to work through our PACE program requests.
Good morning.
Nicole, we have two PACE extensions,
Yes.
and then looks like 3 finals, and then a midpoint.
Yep. So first, the extensions, Scott Axline has requested a start date extension for a period of 4 months on his PACE grant at 707 Walnut Street. His contractor did not start in the 90 days, which is why he's asking for an extension.
Okay. Extension of period of 4 months, okay.
Yes.
And then, what's the other one?
The second extension is Catherine Trueblood is requesting a completion extension for 12 months at 921 West Main Street. Her new deadline to complete would be September 20th, 2023. She's received a partial disbursement of her dilapidated structures grant.
Okay, and has work started on that then?
Yes. Yeah, she's rebuilt most of the porch. I'm not sure what all is left on it. Maybe some painting, and maybe some siding. I'm not sure. She said she's having a couple issues with the contractor.
She's already received the midpoint.
Yes, she's
payment,
done over
so-
half of the work.
Does that extension seem appropriate then if we're at the midpoint or later?
I think it's a little long, but she was concerned about the contractor not being able to get completed.
Okay.
That's the maximum extension, is 12 months. Is that
Correct.
Yeah, do we have a provision in there if work idles, what we do? Because that's my only concern, is that it idles, and then we're through September of '23 before we do anything.
We do not have any provisions for that.
Okay. Is she here today?
She is not. She could not make it. She was at work during
Okay.
the meeting.
I'm wondering if a June 30th wouldn't be more appropriate if work is already past the midpoint. Anyway, so I'm probably impartially the way, it's not that big of a project, but, board, do you have any thoughts on the application?
I just have a question. I don't recall this ever occurring, coming before us. But in a situation such as this, where the applicant has received 50% of the funds appropriated to her, that, okay, we give her the 12-month extension, and the project isn't complete at the end of the 12 months. So then, I mean, to me, the PACE grant expires, is that correct?
Yes, it expires after she's exhausted the full extension, and then she would be responsible for paying back the money she'd
So
received.
she would have to pay back what she is, the 50% that she
Yes,
received. So that was my question, and what happened to that? Does she still get the first 50%, or
Nope.
not? So,
If you don't finish your PACE project, you're responsible for returning the funds
Okay.
you received.
thank you.
The project on 707 Walnut, are there any safety issues involved with not doing the demolition?
It is an unsafe structure, but it's been standing for quite a while, so we don't anticipate it falling inwards yet. Of course, every storm and
Yeah.
snow, it gets closer, but I think it's bearing its weight on its own.
Okay, so you're okay then with the extension
Yes. Yeah.
regarding the safety?
Yeah, it's
part of
only
it?
4 months, and he intends to start that hopefully in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, with that, I make a motion that we grant both the extensions at 707 Walnut and 922 West Main. 921, I'm sorry, West Main.
Oh, we're gonna get there, yeah.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, any additional discussion? Any comments or questions?
I believe I've spoken to you before about the new research that's been completed on 707 Walnut Street.
No, could you refresh us on that? I'm not
I
sure you
will.
have presented
Okay.
anything to the board.
Okay.
Thank you, Jan.
Be happy
And
to.
would you mind identifying yourself for those who are
Yes.
watching?
Just wait a minute. Oh, there it is. Okay. I'm Jan Vaters. I own the property at 711 Walnut Street and live at 701 East Second Street. And also have Sue Livers here with me, who has also done a lot of the work on the Underground Railroad. We're sort of a team. So, yes, 707 Walnut Street has been discovered to be the actual property that William Anderson, one of the major Underground Railroad conductors in Madison and in the country, actually owned. Some of the earlier research had indicated that his home was at 713 Walnut, and that has now been proved incorrect. 707 we've done all the deed search, we've done all of the tax records. He owned the property since 1842. And from looking at the photographs through an open records request, it does appear that the foundation and the floor joists do date from the 1840s. I have approached the owner for purchase. He has requested a considerable amount of money, more than he has in it, because he's very interested in tearing it down and building a new house. However, before we purchase it, even at his price, we do want the ability to actually date the wood. We have professionals at Hanover College that do this kind of dating. The National Park Service, the National Trust, and other professionals in the state are all involved, and we definitely want to make sure that that building is not demolished until it is dated. And if it is in fact proved that the foundation and the floor joists were constructed by William Anderson himself, one of our most important figures, that we saved at least that part of the structure. So I'm urging you to deny the extension. We don't want to be spending city money to tear down one of our most important buildings. And it's possible that once we do the dating, it will not prove to be as important as it is, but that dating is critical. And the owner has refused to let us on the property to do that.
Well, may I ask a couple questions?
Sure.
Have you entered into a purchase agreement conditioned upon certain factors with the owner of the property?
I am trying to get the money together to do that.
Okay, so you haven't entered into a purchase agreement with the owner?
But the
Okay.
city, I believe, could go ahead and require that before you extend the pace. I mean, you're paying him $10,000 to tear down one of the most significant properties in town, in the country,
Well,
actually.
That's not a proper characterization, Jan.
Well,
You're not paying someone to acquire a property to tear it down. What we're doing is working all across our community, as you well know, to incentivize property owners to make major investments in their properties, particularly if it's unsafe, deemed unsafe. So just for proper characterization, we're not paying anyone to tear down a historic property. I think that is improper characterization.
the owner has made it very clear that that's why he bought it. He told me that.
Well, because it was deemed unsafe. But
Well-
that being said, I'm just saying, if you would please correct the reference, the city of Madison is not paying any property owner to tear down a historic property.
Okay.
Okay.
Is it possible that the city of Madison could do, or could allow the professionals to do a dating of the property?
We don't own the property.
I
We don't
understand
own the
that.
property. So I think your request is, could we table the application for an extension of the PACE grant to allow you more time to work with the property owner to identify the dating of the home? But, I mean, nobody's going to be surprised if every house down there is going to be mid-19th century. If so, are you going beyond the dating?
We've already done
Okay.
the deed cert, all of the paperwork says this was William Anderson's house.
Okay.
But until we do the dating, it will not be confirmed.
Okay. What's your next plan? I mean, after what is your strategy with the property owner, Jan?
Well, he's made it very clear the $30,000 is not negotiable. And so, like I said, I'm trying to figure out how to pull together the various organizations to get, we're working with the National Park Service and the National Trust. There's a big conference in South Bend in September, the State Preservation Conference. And we're trying to get the folks down here to actually see the property and go over the stuff, but otherwise we'll take it with us when we go up there, so that's the end of September. We want to make sure that the building is not demolished until it is dated.
Nicole, when is the last time you talked to the owner?
He is in Louisiana right now for work, so it's probably been 2 weeks or so.
Okay. Were any of these issues discussed at that time?
With me and the owner, no.
Okay. My recommendation is, I think it is fair to, given the information that we have, it's fair to table this if you want to at this time. However, I think and communicate with the owner and things like that. I think we have to be cognizant and careful about seeming or having any look of trying to influence a contract or anything like that that we are not a party of. That raises potential issues for the city. And so, I mean, I think it is fair to table that based upon the information that we've given. I don't think that there's any harm at this juncture for a 2-week table to figure that stuff out. But I just throw that out there as potential cautionary.
Okay.
Is there nothing that the city could do legally? They've issued a demolition permit. Is there anything that they can do to stop that, or at least put the demolition permit on hold? I know that's separate from the PACE funds being used to demolish.
That is a separate matter.
I'm
Yeah,
asking.
and what we're considering
Attorney.
today is an extension of the PACE grant.
Right.
Jan, I'm not aware of, just trying to think about the process.
Nicole, when was the demolition permit granted?
I didn't hear. Was there an answer?
She's looking.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
And I guess the other question is, did that go before the historic board?
No. That's the problem. I've also spoken to the Historic Board of Review. Because it was declared unsafe, even though it's been sitting there all this time, it never came before the board. And like I said, this is new research.
Unsafe
so-
structures don't have to have Historic District Board of Review approval.
Right, right. And we've had quite a
So,
bit of discussion
yeah.
about that with
Yeah.
both the state and the National Park Service.
I don't have a problem with tabling the request for the grant extension so that we can review the matter until the next Board of Public Works meeting.
Okay. Perhaps you could also look into the demolition.
Yeah, we can look into it.
That would be
I don't
helpful.
know how to recant that at this juncture, but we can.
understand.
Yeah, and then, and, you know,
It's just really, it would be a shame for the city to, I mean, we've just discovered that it is this most significant property, and we need to get it dated. I personally do not want to buy another house. However, I believe strongly enough.
so
in
Jan, are you
this work.
prepared to stabilize the property if you do acquire it?
That's part of making sure that I don't just get another piece of
Okay.
property, okay?
Nicole, and thank you for,
Yes.
thank you for wanting to preserve our
Yes.
properties
Yes.
and also eliminate an unsafe structure from Walnut Street, which is
Right.
plagued with several unsafe structures on that street.
We need to make sure that we're doing all we can to
As,
bring them back up.
as do we,
Yes.
which is why our PACE program's been so successful. Nicole, you had an answer for us?
The demolition permit was issued May 27th, 2022.
Oh, okay, so just a few months ago.
Yep.
Okay.
Does it expire? Or is there a never ending date, or is it?
I don't have the answer to that. I would have to look through our codes.
Okay. Well, I'll make the motion that we table the extension request for 707 Walnut Street till the next meeting.
I'll second
Give us
the
time to
mayor's-
evaluate this.
I'll second the mayor's motion.
Any additional comments or questions? Anything else from audience? Nicole, any comments or response to that? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you, Jan.
So,
Yep,
you made a motion to table as it pertains to 707 Walnut Street.
yes.
There is still a motion and a second to approve the extension for 921.
Amend.
Coming to that. Yep.
I make a motion, we amend the mayor's motion to accept the PACE extension for 921 West Main.
Okay. So the motion will be to table the first request relative to 707 and approve the second request, the 921 West Main. Is that correct, Carl?
Yes, that's
All
my
right.
amendment.
I'll second that. Any additional comments or questions, discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, thank you.
Okay, first of three finals, 901 West First Street. The owners completed some replacement of siding. They took off the vinyl siding and put LP Smart siding on this home. Their PACE grant was completed according to their submittal. So they're asking for the disbursement of $7,500. That's Tom and Barbara McPherson.
That's great.
Second final is 214-216 West Second Street. Chris and Gina Lynn completed tuck pointing and restoration of some windows on this property. They're still in the process of installing the windows, but they have been completed. And the space grant is completed according to their agreement, and they're asking for the disbursement of $7,500. And the last one is 512 Elm Street. Amanda Briner completed the tuck pointing of this chimney, which was also done according to her PACE agreement. She's asking for the disbursement of $750.
On 214 West Second Street, if you haven't seen it so far, if you looked at the rear elevation, there's a beautiful garage that's already being constructed. There's been major investment on that particular property, and that's going to look very nice with the additions we're making to the comfort station there. Any comments, questions on the PACE finals?
I make a motion, we approve the finals at 901 West First, 214-216 West Second, 512 Elm.
I'll second that motion.
Any comments, questions, any discussion? Anyone from the audience? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
And
And we have one midpoint.
Yep, one midpoint for you, 124 East Street. Marcus Gray is working on this property. He tore off the front part of the structure, which was dilapidated, and is reframing it into a beautiful new home. He's completed over half of his PACE grant and is asking for the disbursement of $12,500.
Been a lot of improvement on that part of East Street too. Looks great. And with sidewalks that city did. Any discussion? I'll move that we approve the midpoint payment for 124 East Street.
I'll second the mayor's motion.
Comments or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Nicole, thank you. All right, next up, we have the Sunrise Crossing Stormwater Detention Agreements. Tony Steinhardt is here, and he'll introduce Michael Harris with JTL.
Yeah, good morning, Board of Works members. We have two agreements on the agenda today in conjunction with the stormwater retention pond that's being constructed on the property of the Sunrise Crossing Shopping Center and apartments. I do want to just update you. We've had a tremendous amount of rain over the weekend, as many know. We've been in contact with the contractor. I'll hand out a document. Certainly, there was a lot more water than normal. We're working to improve some erosion control issues along that construction site, as well as adding some additional erosion control measures. So those processes have been in the works, and we're currently did some additional work yesterday as well on Labor Day to try to protect the streams downstream. So I'll pass that out. At this time, I'd like to introduce Mike Harris to talk a little bit about the stormwater retention pond agreement, as well as the maintenance plan that we're asking you to approve. Basically, we're approving that we as the city agree on the calculations for that. JTL has reviewed those along with the Winterwood civil engineers, as well as the CRM civil engineers. He'll present that today. And then also the inspection and maintenance plan moving forward for that pond that all three entities have to assign to. So, Mike?
Good morning.
Morning, Michael.
I'm going to go through the review of the drainage report. go through what the calculations were, and then we can drop back to the other items. So to give you an idea of the amount of water that we're talking about on the map, the area in yellow is the entire drainage area that is encompassed by the project. You can see it goes, well, in the middle of the drawing, running east-west is Clifty, running north-south is Michigan. The drainage area goes to the north, almost up to Super ATV, goes west into, along Crestwood Drive. It's about 73 acres in total, so there's a significant amount of water that comes through there right now. There's an existing pipe under Clifty. I believe it's a 36-inch pipe that comes through there. There's a lot of water that comes down through there. And this all ends up, of course, it goes through Miles Ridge, across Franks Drive. This all ends up in Crooked Creek, which you know goes down 421, ends up impacting Walnut Street. I mean, everything that's happening up there with this impacts what's happening down here. So there's a lot of opportunity with this project. To give you an idea of the amount of water, you can see the based on the storm. So I've shown you for the 2, the 10, the 25, and the 100-year storm event. I think it bears mentioning a 100-year storm event doesn't mean it's going to happen once every 100 years. This area seems to be a magnet for those sort of storms right now, but 100-year rain event means it has a 1% chance of happening in any 1 year. So in the 100-year event, right now, without anything being done, there's about 430 cubic feet per second of water that is generated in that development. This is just a picture of a 400 cubic foot dumpster, basically. So that, if you can imagine that filled with water every second, is what's coming down through that.
What's the 431 representing again, Michael? I want to make sure I understand.
That is the pre-development, so right now, amount of runoff that is generated within that 73 acre drainage area. So if you go down to the point where all that drainage area comes to one point, and at its peak during a 100-year event, there's 431 cubic feet per second of water running through there.
Is that about 3,000 gallons?
431 cubic feet per second. I'm going to trust your calculation.
It's
there.
approximately,
It's about 3,000 gallons per second running through there.
Wow.
So that structure filled with water every 1 second running through there. It's
Wow.
a lot of water.
Okay.
What's being done, so this is, and I don't have a pointer here, but the buildings that you see in gray are that's the Sunrise Crossing development. It would be to the east of that will be the Winterwood development that will be in the future. And as a part of this, so at the southeast corner of the property, right now there's basically a valley. That's where all the water goes through right now. So that will be dammed up, and it's a pretty simple. You dam it up and you put a smaller pipe going out than what's coming in.
Yep.
And the pond holds back the excess rainwater through there. So it fits within, everybody's worked together, Winterwood, the Sunrise Crossing folks, the city have all worked together to figure out that site, where it should be, where it works, where it's out of everybody's way with the developments. So you can see it's gotten bigger. You know, it's a balancing act. I will say there are no current regulations that the city has that requires detention from a developer. So this has been a commitment on the city's part to Stormwater. It's been a commitment on the developers to be good corporate citizens, because at the end of the day, they didn't necessarily have to do this. So it's been great to see everybody come together to do that. So this is like engineering humor, so it's pretty bad. That's from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. This shows the post-development, so after this is constructed and implemented versus the pre-development. So again, for the 100-year event, there is, the pre-development was 431 cubic feet per second. That's dropping down to 229 cubic feet per second, so almost 50% less water coming through there. And I will say most, when there's a community that has stormwater regulations, most of them say the post-development has to be equal to the pre-development.
Right.
So to have a 50% decrease it's unheard of, and it's fantastic. And then to put that into perspective, that is, that's over 3 million gallons of water that is being detained at the top of the hill and being released at that 50% reduced rate down Crooked Creek that comes down to the bottom of the hill. Now I want to make sure you understand, it doesn't fix the issue, but it's certainly a piece of what needs to be done to help alleviate some of that flooding downstream. So I'm happy to answer any specific questions about that if you have any.
Mike, this information is really helpful because, as you know, over the course of the past year, improving our stormwater management has been a high priority. We have a contract right now with the planning assistance from the Army Corps of Engineers to evaluate the Crooked Creek watershed. And last weekend was a reminder of how important stormwater management is to every community. Having, stormwater run unabated can be a real problem, particularly when you have something to the magnitude of this. And of course, a lot of the development activity that occurred prior to 2022 did so without really much thought at all to stormwater management. It was just like, let's direct the water so that it gets into a stream and gets to the river without a lot of thought on the hydrological impact of that much water. So I think it's great that the city and our engineers and our partners are looking at this really thoughtfully. It's also part of a broader strategy we're working on through building and planning and our utility group with regards to evaluating all of our stormwater control policies and plans. And we're optimistic that the information we get from the Corps over the next few months will also, give us some more solutions to explore so that we can mitigate future flooding, because, the amount of precipitation we've been getting has been pretty significant. And my heart goes out to those in southeastern Jefferson County who experienced the worst of the storms over the weekend with lots of damage, property damage, and unfortunately loss of life too. So anything we can do to prevent flooding and flash flooding in particular, we have to do. I'm really happy to see that the capacity of the stormwater detention basin is even larger than what we talked about at the beginning of the project. At one time, we were talking about a 350,000 cubic foot basin, and now it looks like that's gone up, another 10 or 15%, which is fantastic.
And Mayor, I would say that that's through the investigation. There was additional acreage that we uncovered that was draining through that site that was unknown at the time. So, we more than doubled the amount of acreage that we thought was running through that parcel. So that's the reason the site has gotten bigger.
Okay. And so what's before us today really are two agreements. Mike and Tony, you want to elaborate on a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So the first is it's titled Stormwater Retention Pond Agreement. So that basically lays out the responsibility of the various parties, how the cost of it is divvied out. It is based on percentages. I've got the dollar amounts.
It's around 38.
So yeah, Winterwood, 38.25%. And I'll take a step
Yep.
back. The engineer that did all of the stormwater calculations is the one who went through and did assigned the different areas within the project to the different developments. We checked it. The engineer for Winterwood checked it. So everybody's on the same page with what these numbers are. Yeah. So this agreement memorializes what those percentages are and what the dollar amounts associated with each of those are. So everybody's paying for their share of it. So the Winterwood part of it is 38.25%. So they are paying that portion of the costs associated with the basin. There's calculations attached to it, but that's the basis of that agreement.
Mike, would you share with them the total cost of the stormwater detention?
Yep, total cost, $377,253. And then Winterwood's 38.25% of that equates to $144,299.27.
Board, just to put that in perspective, so 100% of the cost for the dry retention basin is being covered by both the developers. The city did participate as a part of our EDA in some piping for that project from other areas, which is in the neighborhood of about $200,000. So all told, between the city and private investment, we'll have almost $600,000 invested in stormwater remediation on that.
And that brings up a good point. The pipe I mentioned earlier that comes under Clifty, it actually comes across Clifty, it runs east, and it would really go around Winterwood and bypass everything, but as a part of this, they've agreed, and that's the part that, the $200,000 with the city, that's being directed into this basin to make sure that everything in that drainage area is being captured within this basin.
Because that line was going to the east and through another portion of Miles Ridge, so we're pulling that water out of Miles Ridge as well.
Yeah, we should
This will have a significant downstream benefit, won't it, Mike?
Absolutely, tremendous. That, I mean, there's Miles Ridge, that whole area, Franks Drive, they have a waterway that runs through, most of it's fed from that pipe, so this should be a huge reduction in what's.
Because now you're saying currently the water that's running unabated through that area is going to be directed now into the detention basin,
Right.
and then more slowly released as that detention basin fills up.
Right. So some of those areas, the only water that will be in those areas will be the water that's falls on their property, basically.
Okay.
Instead of.
From other areas of
whatever the
commercial
acreage
development.
is across Clifty Drive that comes over there right now.
Okay.
Yep. The second document is, you want to go through this?
Yeah, the second document here is the detention pond inspection and maintenance plan that outlines the maintenance program that will need to be moving forward with both the Winterwood and the city of Madison, and who shares that cost and access and those items associated with the inspection and maintenance of the detention facility.
Just a silly question, as you build this, well, you're gonna have to sod as you go, right? To make sure that we don't have another big washout like we.
Yeah, so they have erosion control measures that they have to put in during construction.
Okay.
So this will be, all the numbers we're talking about are really post-construction. So they end up being two different things, but yes, they'll, before this becomes active, they will have it planted and ready to go, so we're not washing dirt downstream during construction.
Okay, thank you.
So there's two documents, Mayor. One, the stormwater retention and pond agreement that needs a motion and approval, and then the detention pond inspection and maintenance plan.
You can approve them in a batch, if you'd like.
Well, we can't build this detention basin quick enough, in my opinion. It's just part of that global strategy we have, particularly with the bringing solutions to the Crooked Creek watershed. So I make a motion, we approve the stormwater detention pond agreement and the detention pond inspection and maintenance plan. And also in that, I will mention, just as part of this motion, there's a phasing here with regard to getting this development done. We have to build this detention basin as part of the first phase of that development.
I'll
Entertain a
second
Okay.
the mayor's motion.
Okay. Any comments or questions?
Mayor, I've got a question
Yep.
concerning the retention pond. I don't see anywhere mentioned where there's a fence around this detention pond. And I'm just concerned about the safety, especially being in the neighborhood, with the apartment complex being built adjoining that. I know it's not made to retain water,
Yeah.
but it don't take long for a kid to, you know, find a place to play in the water. You know, I mean, growing up, as kids, we was all attracted to playing out in the rain and, you know, finding places, you know, and, I mean, I read all the time up in central Indiana, Indianapolis, the Donut counties, where there's cars that drive in these ponds. There's kids that get away from the young kids that get away from their parents, from these apartment complexes, housing complexes, and they end up finding their body in a detention or retention pond, and the results aren't good. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on fencing around this.
Sure. So a couple things. Number one, it is a dry basin, so it will fill up and then it will empty out, and I can look and see. I want to say it's less than 48 hours that it emptied back out. And it's not typical in the places that we see that you put a fence around those. I completely understand what you're saying. If my mom heard this, she'd lose her mind, but I used to go get in the drainage ditch and slide down through it when the big rain came through there. I understand exactly what you're saying. It's not typical that we see that a fence is put around those.
So the depth of water shouldn't be too bad as far as,
Well, it will, during a 100-year event, it will fill up.
okay.
And then within that 48-hour period, it will drain down and empty, and then it's a dry basin.
And you're looking at what, maybe 10 feet max,
I
15 feet?
A lot can happen in 24 to 48 hours.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and I think it's in here. The depth is, what is that, 14 feet. During a 100-year event, it will be 14 feet deep. I'm sorry, yeah, just below that, about 12 feet deep, but, yeah, it's just not I understand.
I agree with you. I've normally seen that if you have a retention pond where there's water in it at all times, you would normally fence around it, but not on a detention generally.
Yeah,
Liability,
Even then, there's a lot of times,
Yeah.
from what we see,
yeah,
there's even in those cases, there's typically not a fence even when they're wet. Because a lot of times when they're wet, it's a feature within the development.
yeah.
So you visually seeing a fence out there takes away from what, the aesthetic of what it is.
Do you have other projects that utilize detention
All the
ponds?
time. Yeah, I mean, every development project now has detention on it, yeah.
I mean, had any problems with,
No, I mean, I don't want to say that out loud, but no. The only one that I can think of offhand where a fence was put in was for a Lowe's, and that was a corporate requirement. It wasn't a local requirement. You just don't see it very often.
it just brings me back to, over the weekend, I read I think it was in Plainfield, a little 4-year-old girl, I believe, left her residence and her parents didn't know where she was, and they ended up finding her body in a creek nearby. And, I know it's a creek, not a detention pond, but there's still water involved, and the outcome wasn't good, so.
I agree.
And, I've just read about numerous instances, especially up in central Indiana, where there's a lot more development, of those types, than we have here, so. That's just my concern, that
Typically, the areas that I see are of a concern to people are where there's rushing water, more so than standing water. Not that it's not an issue. I mean, people have issues with swimming pools and lakes, but it's typically, again, what I see is where there's rushing water and pipes, and kids are playing in the rushing water, and they get pulled in.
Yeah.
Had one down the street from us a couple years ago. So it's, again, I don't disagree with what you're saying.
Well, and you can never build the perfect system.
That's right.
Who's to say a child isn't gonna climb the fence?
I would have climbed.
Who's to say they're not gonna, I mean, people have swimming pools, they have houses on canals. There's always a safety issue when you're around any body of water, whether it's man-made or natural. Yeah, Dave's point's a good one. It just emphasizes the fact that you always gotta watch your kids, too.
Also, there's an inspection and maintenance agreement here. The city will inspect, after 1/2 inch, after a 24-hour period, the city will perform maintenance and basically check to make sure it's operating correctly. So that's part of the agreement.
Because what we don't wanna do is have it fail and retain water, because it would
And
not be able to do
I
that
think the
permanently.
other important thing here is this is the property owner's
Correct.
basin. It's not the city's basin.
It's, and we've entered into a contract to sell the eastern half of the property, but the basin has to be constructed as part of the first phase. The second phase is the multifamily piece. Yeah. Any additional comments or questions?
Okay,
Dave,
motion
your
and second.
point's a good one. Hearing none? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you. Okay, I'll bring up Deputy Mayor McGee to talk about Phase 1 and 2 of our LPA consultant contracts for our Madison Main Street Master Plan projects.
Good afternoon, Board. I just wanted to give you a quick overview of where we are in this process before we talk about contracts.
This is gonna
So,
really help
the Main
all
Street
down here.
project is from the top of Hanover Hill all the way to Jefferson Street. We've divided that into 3 phases and have already secured federal highway grants for Phase 1 and Phase 2. As part of that process, we have to select consultants for engineering, and that is what this process is that you're going to be approving today, hopefully. What NDOT guides all of that because they are managing our federal highway dollars, and so we followed their process. You're looking at 2 contracts at the same time for Phase 1 and Phase 2 because we did a reissue of the RFP on Phase 1, so they ended up being closer together for timing. So we just brought you both. For both of those RFP rating processes, JTL was selected. They scored the highest in terms of our rating and evaluation on their proposals. So they are the same engineering firm on both contracts. And these contracts are part of the preliminary engineering, right-of-way, construction planning as a part of the projects. And I just wanted to make a note that the contracts are worded that it will be no more than those dollars listed. So maybe less, but it definitely will not be more.
There's a lot of work leading up to a potential letting date in the spring and summer of 2026.
Yes.
I know may seem like it's far off, but it really isn't.
It's going to go very fast.
And have you talked about the federal highway grants that have been secured?
I did.
Okay.
And also those will reopen. I believe they'll reopen assuming funding is available in November of this year. We do intend to apply for Phase 3. That would complete Main Street and be mainly the business section. Phase 1 is from the top of Hanover Hill to the Incline Bridge. Phase 2 is from the Incline Bridge to Mill. So Phase 3 will be the rest of that corridor.
Board, any comments or questions on the LPA consulting contracts? Exciting. This is something we've actually been working on for 3 years already. Has it been 3 years already?
2.5 at least.
I like the striping that was redone on Main Street.
Thank you. They're not quite done, but it is a big improvement. It's actually what we paid for the first time, to be quite honest.
Good.
So they will be back next Monday, hoping weather holds for us. They will do all the crosswalks, stop bars, and turn arrows, lane arrows, things like that, all the handwork,
Yeah. Several good
hopefully to be
comments
completed
on
before Chautauqua.
Got several comments from the public on that, and it was well received.
Good. Well, it was a problem when it was raining at night, very dangerous in my opinion, so good timing to have that redone with all the rain we've been
Yeah,
getting.
it was. It looks good.
Make a motion, we approve the LPA consulting contracts for Phase 1 and 2 as presented.
I'll second the mayor's motion.
Any discussion? Comments or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to claims. Thank you, Michael.
Mayor
Billy.
had an opportunity
Billy,
to
thank
review
you.
the claims. I'll make a motion that the claims be approved as submitted.
I'll second David's motion.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Thank you. Under mayor's comments, I just want to just reiterate again how dangerous flash flooding is. We experienced it firsthand a year ago and several years before that. We are still working on solutions, but we are bringing solutions to that problem. But it's a very holistic approach. It's about policies, procedures, development standards, infrastructure. It is very difficult to properly detain, retain, rechannel, and respond to major storm events where you have 9 or 10 inches of rain in an extremely short period of time that overwhelms just about any infrastructure that's been built. But we offer all of our support to the Jefferson County Commissioners and the community outside of Madison as they work now to recover from the disaster. I know that the American Red Cross has already been engaged, and all of our Indiana Department of Homeland Security and government offices are also mobilizing to provide support to Jefferson County EMA and Jefferson County Commissioners in the recovery efforts. I want to also mention that we continue with our blight elimination program as far as working with property owners and engaging with them on nuisance properties that have elevated to not only the blight in our neighborhood, but also unsafe structures. It's very important that we have an action plan on each and every property that is unsafe. As with the conversation we had earlier, demolition should be the last choice. Unfortunately, nothing's been done for decades on many of these properties to the point to now any contributing characteristics that they might have had beyond perhaps a foundation has all been lost. But working proactively with property owners, we can change that. Our PACE program has been extremely successful in preserving historic structures and eliminating blight, not only downtown and on the hilltop. We'll continue to pursue that with the support of property owners and investors. This afternoon, or this evening, I should say, we will be talking about Crystal Beach. Speaking of historic preservation, that is an iconic historic asset for downtown Madison on our riverfront that has served our community well for 85 years, but does not last forever without proper maintenance and investment. We will be making a presentation tonight on Crystal Beach about the condition of the pool and essentially a replacement plan. And we ask for the community support in doing that because we know how invaluable recreation is to our community and to our region as a destination, as well as preservation. So there's a whole quality of life, historic preservation element, as well as tourism that's bringing Crystal Beach to the forefront. The pool house itself has been under a restoration project for approximately a year, and it's winding down. but now we have to turn our attention to the most important part of Crystal Beach, which is the pool structure itself and the unsafe, unstable condition that the pool is in now. Earlier today, we also had a bid opening for the first two of our Destination Madison projects that are being funded through Governor Holcomb's Ready Grant initiative through the Southern Indiana Regional Development Authority. So I would invite Tony and Nicole perhaps to give us an update on the bidding for those two projects, perhaps maybe just a quick review on what the first two projects are and where we landed after today's bid opening.
Yeah, just as a reminder, the first two projects, one is the Madison, Indiana Gateway, the completion of the bridge approach into our city. That project with some improvements and demolition previously approved by the Historic Board and supported of those buildings and property along that entry. The second project is the Mulberry Street Arts Corridor improvements, and that's the parking lot in front of the Kindness Mural, as well as some improvements to the parking at our Comfort Station. As you all know, the Redevelopment Commission had commissioned a parking study and found that we were in pretty good shape, with the exception of here in Central Business District where it gets a little tight. And we're adding additional parking as a part of this project to the Comfort Station on Main Street to accommodate that.
So earlier this morning, we opened bids. We received 3 bids for all of our projects. Shooty, Sedam, and All-Star all submitted for both projects. We asked each contractor to consider a combination alternate. 2 of the 3 provided combination at a cost rate. Our low bidder for both projects was Shooty, who was one of the 2 that submitted a combination alternate. Their combined base bid was about 1.6 million, but their combined alternate is 1.5. So we're gonna have a little bit of cost savings with them. Of course, awarding their contract will be pending legal and engineering review to make sure that they submitted all the paperwork accordingly. So we'll have that on your next agenda for approval.
It's exciting.
Nicole, what's the time frame for these projects?
Yep, so we want to get them started on construction as soon as possible. We've given them the date of October 1st to start with the intended completion by June next year.
Thank you.
It's exciting. We worked on the Ready Grant process for over a year, and to see that the fruition from that effort result in not only a really good workforce and destination development plans for the city of Madison, but now impactful projects as part of our destination plan coming to fruition and starting construction soon.
Thank you.
Nicole,
Good job.
are both of these fully funded by the
Yes.
Ready Grant?
Yes, we received tentative approval from the RDA to send our applications through their process. It's on their next agenda to fully award the Mulberry Street project, because that's received full approval from the state, and the Gateway projects, hopefully right along with that.
We received approximately about $2.6 million
Yes,
total
total.
commitment from the RDA for our projects. It's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Making a difference. I will move it to public comment. Anybody here would like to address the Board of Public Works and Safety?
Mayor,
Did everyone bring an umbrella?
before we adjourn, I'd like to make a request. A little over a year ago, we changed the traffic flow on Main Street. And this, in 3 weeks or so, we're going to have probably our biggest event of the year with the Chautauqua coming up. And I'd like to request that the police chief come to our next meeting and give us a traffic flow how the police department
Traffic
intends
management
to
plan?
yeah,
Okay.
control the traffic, of people coming in, for Chautauqua. Just to see what their plan is,
Sure.
so.
That'd be great. I'll reach out to the chief. I will just mention in light of that, if you recall during regatta, we had a lot of people here for the parade, and then a large concentration of people here for fireworks. And we spent a lot of time on the event planning aspect of traffic management, and I believe that it worked really well because we placed a lot of focus on it. I think your point is, if we place a lot of focus on this because we're going to have thousands of visitors in our community, we'll manage the traffic really, really well. One of the things that we're also doing, Dave, as part of our follow-up with regard to the parking asset management plan is improving wayfinding, because that is something that has always been a problem. People come to town, and unless you're familiar with the area, you don't know where to go.
Yeah.
And everybody, particularly when there could be parking options with the Chautauqua, they all come sitting into the corridor, and then they're just driving around looking for a place to park. We have had conversations with the event organizers for Chautauqua about better wayfinding so that people could find places to park. Plus, they also are shuttling. They've restored, I believe, shuttling again this year to help alleviate the traffic. But we'll have Chief give us a plan, and all of those measures have to actually be working together to do it effectively.
My biggest concern is Saturday morning when everybody's coming into town
If it's, yep,
and
it's pretty.
everybody's looking for a parking place, and the traffic, one thing that did help, you worked with the Chautauqua organizers, was to change the entrance from
Yeah.
Main Street down to Broadway and First Street, so I think that's helped with a traffic flow. But my biggest concern is the Saturday morning traffic coming into town, looking for places to park, waiting on people to, well, all the parallel parking on Main Street gets full, and so traffic's going to be backing up, and, you know, what are we going to do with that traffic? So,
I think we'll be a little bit directionally challenged, and what I mean by that is we still do not have adequate wayfinding,
Right.
which is why we need people there directing
yeah,
our visitors so that they can have a really good experience too.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Clerk, anything? Entertain a motion to adjourn then.
So move.
Second David's motion.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, thank you.